Welcome back to another episode of the Godel Pod. Today I'm joined by two very familiar faces. We have our CFO Rob Nugent, who's been at Godel now for 15 years. And the reason we're here today and what's brought us together is to talk about the transformational fitness journey he's been on. And we're also joined by Ric Moylan, who is the founder of Charity Boxing Nights and also a real fitness and exercise advocate. So he's going to talk to us today a little bit about his story. But I'll start with you, Rob. What kick-started your fitness journey? What was the inspiration?
Hi Fran, thanks for that intro. My journey started last year when I was away on our summer family holiday, and I looked at some of the photos that my wife had taken of me by the pool, and I was quite embarrassed by what I saw on her phone. I hadn't realised it at the time, but I'd just neglected myself and was terribly out of shape.
Okay, so was it more of an aesthetic thing initially then, that journey?
Not really, no. I think for me personally, despite having played football like to a reasonable standard in my younger days, I'd recently turned 40, and a combination of being busy with business, having a young family, dining out, socially drinking with friends, and just a general lack of exercise, I'd realised that it had taken its toll. And for me personally, I just wanted to get back to being fit, healthy, active, and I just decided I was determined to make that change.
Yeah.
I'd weigh myself when I was away on holiday, and at my heaviest, I was over 102 kilograms, which, when I Googled it, I realised I was clinically obese, which was quite scary, really.
Yeah. So, if you don't mind me asking now, Rob, what do you weigh now?
Yeah, so since last summer, I've tried to stay pretty consistent with my training. I'm in the gym nearly every morning at 6 o'clock, and I'm managing what I'm eating. I'm drinking lots of water. I've stopped drinking alcohol. And I'm now down to about 85 kilograms. So I've lost about 17 kilograms.
Yeah, that's a lot, and it's very impressive. You obviously mentioned training at 6 o'clock. What's your training regime like? Obviously, I know you're involved with boxing, but is there anything else that you find, exciting, gets you going?
Yeah, so it's an interesting question. I found something called High Rocks at the start of this year, which is a kind of fitness sporting event. So I'm into the hybrid type training, so lots of running with compromised exercises. So my kind of training in the morning involves quite a lot of running with skiing machines, rowing machines, and different kind of body weight and kind of weight exercises.
Yeah, all the fun stuff. You competed though quite recently, didn't you, in New York? How did that go?
Yeah, it was great. I actually coincided a family holiday to New York with a date when High Rocks was.
I love that.
Yeah, don't tell my wife that that's the reason that we went. But yeah, I competed over in New York and managed to do the single High Rocks in 1 hour and 12 minutes.
Very impressive. For any listener that doesn't really know High Rocks World and all of that, that is incredibly good time. So hats off to you for that, Rob. I guess throughout the journey you've been on, what's challenged you the most?
Yeah, so I think my main challenge really has just been staying consistent with training. It's quite easy to go through kind of fits and starts and kind of, go pretty hard one day and then take your foot off the gas the next day when you're training. So I've just tried to be consistent and just kind of slog it out really with the training.
Yeah. So obviously that very much kind of links to being motivated consistently, but what's the kind of key motivator? Obviously you mentioned at the start having a family. I imagine that's a big part of it, but are you able to elaborate on that for us?
Yeah, good question. I think for me personally, my main motivation now on this health and well-being kind of fitness journey is wanting to make sure that I set a good example to my 3 children. Living a kind of a balanced health, fitness and business focused lifestyle, I think is really important for me to show them how to keep all the balls in the air really, and just live a balanced lifestyle. I'm a big believer that having a healthy body and lifestyle leads to having a healthy, positive mindset, which can then also be transitioned into other areas of our lives. So I'm keen to demonstrate that to the kids.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. You mentioned their positive mindset, and I couldn't agree more how important that is for business. I guess that links us very well as to, understanding how you know Rick.
Yeah, so I've known Rick for a number of years through his work with another business which I was previously involved in. And we reconnected last year as I was undertaking my kind of fitness and health and well-being journey. And after reconnecting, we asked Rick to come in and do some performance coaching with the Godel sales team, which he's been super successful with doing for us. And then in October last year, I attended my first charity boxing night event at the Hilton Hotel in Manchester, and I was blown away with how good it was.
Amazing. Rick, we're on to you. You've been a coach for 20 plus years now. How did you get started in all of this?
Yeah, hi Fran, and thanks for having me onto the podcast today. I got started because I think, like quite a few young people, I just loved sport from being a child, and probably my parents agreed with that, so I used to just be out and about playing sport all the time and kind of messing about, doing just playing football and whatnot like that. And there's two predominant sports that I was drawn to. As I say, football was the main one, and maybe we'll get into how that shaped and influenced my career in a little bit. But the other one was combat sports, which I was involved in from a young age as well. I think parents sent me doing combat sports probably to keep me out of trouble more than anything, keep me out of mischief. But and there's an argument whether that worked or not, but maybe that's a different story. But I wanted to play sport and be in and around sport. That was what I believed were the early drivers for my career. And when sport professionally wasn't really an option for me, I decided quite quickly I wanted to be in and around health and fitness and the sporting environment. I didn't know how or what that looked like at first, but I knew I needed to get a few more qualifications. So I did some qualifications in personal training and anatomy and physiology and things like circuit training, which got me a job working in a gym as a personal trainer, whilst I then went to university to study sport and exercise science. And I did a degree in that. I initially did what they called HND, High National Diploma, and then into a degree. And I kind of wanted to be in and around that sporting environment. It was more because, as I say, I loved sport. It was kind
you
of
just had a passion for it.
Yeah, and I didn't really know what the jobs and the career paths would look like or be like. I just kind of wanted to do it, and so that was all my focus was on. And I'm not gonna I'm gonna be mindful of my language, but I wanted to be the person sort of with the team tracksuit on, just be in that environment and be immersed with it. And it was just all about passion and a love for sport, and that was where it all began. And I've been fortunate enough to work with a bunch of football teams at a professional level. Originally, all as a physical trainer. Originally, that was very much my background, was getting people fit and fitter, faster, stronger, and that kind of stuff. I learned very quickly that the biggest precursor to that was the mental game, which then took me into performance coaching and whatnot. I also realised it was probably my mental performance game, which is why I didn't progress as a youngster. But I was very much a physical trainer, and working in football. That then led to me being approached by a couple of young professional boxers in the Manchester boxing scene who were relatively unknown at the time, Anthony Crolla was one of them, who ended up going on to win a world title. But then I was also working with a stablemate of his, a young professional boxer at the time called Tony Bellew. And Tony Bellew ended up, again, winning a world title. And you know, it's funny how the world works.
Some big names here.
Yeah. But Tony Bellew probably became most famous, was it for the jungle, was it? Or something like that? Probably not. I bet he's probably not overly, mind you, he's not too bothered about that. But so anyway, and then I always had this boxing fitness class that I was still running at the time, and there was a regular person in that class, and I was teaching him how to jab and how to cross and how to do the basics. And it turned out he was Ricky Hatton's manager. Once I'd got started with these young pro boxers, I got the approach to come and work for Team Hatton and for Ricky Hatton, which was obviously at the time, you know, Ricky's still a big name now, but at the time he was a super famous boxer, and that was my first big step into elite sport, which then led to working with Red Bull and working with British Tennis and all kinds of random stuff. And 20 odd years of working originally on the physical game, realising that the mental game was the foundation of it all, and the journey as a performance coach continues. The more you learn, the more you realise you don't know.
Quite the journey. You mentioned a couple of people there and some well-known names. Do you remember who your first client was?
Yeah. So we've been working at this gym, and I very quickly stumbled upon that I could make money working for the gym, or if I kind of did it myself and then gave the gym a little piece of my earnings, I could earn a lot more money. Now, at that time, the gyms were very much like full of cardio equipment, technogym, treadmills, all facing in the same direction. And I remember I didn't kind of really have a clue about how to sell being a trainer. I didn't really have a clue about closing clients or business or anything. All I knew was that combat sports was way more fun than running on a treadmill. And I saw a lot of people that were quite, in my mind anyway, looked quite bored running on treadmills. So I just used to go up to people with the gloves and the pads and what's called a body belt, which is one of those big sort of padded belts you wrap around.
So you can punch them in the stomach.
Yeah. I had one of them. So I'd kind of drag them off the treadmills and offer them like 3 10-minute sessions to punch lumps out of me. And I'm not, that seems to be quite popular. A lot of people wanted to hit me. And again, there's probably an argument that that's still the same. But it was a lady called Claire, and she was a really quite a senior manager for the RBS, for the Royal Bank of Scotland. And she was a natural, and she just sort of, gave it a go and really quite enjoyed punching me. And so she signed up there, and then she just sort of said, I want to do some training with you. And that was it. I trained Claire for years, and what it gave me a bit of a USP, and it gave me something that stood out in the gyms. So quite quickly, a lot of other people were like, what I'm doing or what I think I should be doing to get fit is quite boring. I'm not really enjoying it. That looks quite good fun. I'll go and do that instead. So quite quickly, I managed to get very busy and, do quite well as a trainer. Out of my first client.
Love that. I think your love of sport is very clear. Obviously, I've spent a number of hours with you over the last couple of weeks, months, and it really comes through. You've obviously got a son, and you mentioned combat sport being something that's really important to you. That's kind of gone down to him, hasn't it? You train together at times, don't you?
Yeah, we do, and I repicked up my. I got to about 8 months away when I was in my late teens. I got to about 6 or 8 months away, and the final belt away from being a black belt. And one of my big regrets, and we talk about regret and stuff in our coaching, don't we, and whatnot. Yeah. One of my big regrets is that I walked away from it, and I remember without passing my black belt. And I remember my parents at the time, and obviously you don't want to hear it off your parents. My parents were saying, you're going to regret this, and sure enough, 25 odd years later, I regretted it, and I always had this sort of itch that I wanted to scratch with combat martial arts on my own journey, similar to like Rob's talked about with his journey, and it just coincided with my son taking a real interest in it himself, in kickboxing, and he wanted to get started. So yeah, about 2.5 years ago, we joined a club together. I'm not his trainer, I'm not his coach, I'm his dad. That's what he wants me to be, is his dad and not his trainer and his coach. He's very much on his pathway, stood on one side of the room. I'm very much on my own journey with it, but it's also something we do together that we love. And he, again, there's a common theme here. He's getting much fitter and faster, stronger. I'm definitely improving, but definitely not getting as fit, fast, as strong as he is. But the common theme is he really seems to enjoy beating me up, you know, which is a common thing.
There is a common theme here, isn't there?
Yeah, there is, yeah.
No, brilliant. Well, I guess kind of on that topic of combat sport, it lends us really nicely into introducing the charity boxing night. So for anybody listening, to get a sense of this, I'd really recommend going on YouTube and searching Charity Boxing Nights 2023, because I watched it the other day and I got goosebumps, and I'm so excited to be attending the one this year. So you mentioned how, you know, the Charity Boxing Nights, people become family, they become part of it, but talk about your involvement in the start of this, Rick. What was the journey?
So whilst in the working in the pro boxing game, I'd come across this concept in London where boxing gyms, the term for it at the time was white collar boxing, and basically what they were doing was they were getting what the term was at the time, white collared workers, office based workers who, a bit like I'd done with my personal training career, they were stressed out, they were under highly pressured people, working long hours, and they were gravitating to combat sports to de-stress, to get fit as an alternative methodology. And what they were then doing, these gyms, was putting these events on and actually getting people to compete. And I sort of came across this concept and I thought, there's nobody doing this in Manchester. I thought there was parts of it, and still to this day there's parts of it that are, you know, questionable in terms of how some of these things are organised and whatnot, but maybe that's not for this podcast. But I thought I can do this in Manchester, so I did, and I put a small event on in 2013 at the Midland Hotel, and it was very much about this concept of white collar boxing, and I donated a little bit of money to charity in memory of a friend of mine that had passed away, but it was very much like I fancied myself as a bit of an entrepreneur with it, and wanted to do it as a bit of a business and make some money. I remember being stood at the bar afterwards with an orange juice, of course, and my partner at the time, she said to me towards the end of the night, she said, you know, that was great, you know, when are you doing the next one? And again, mindful of my language, in slightly different words, I just said to her, I'm never ever doing that again, because it was a nightmare for various logistical reasons. But it was very challenging. The biggest challenge was getting the fighters together and you know, the training and managing different personalities and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, sort of, and that was it. I was never doing it again. Never ever, and my mind was made up. And so it's, you know, sort of move on 2 years later to early 2000, and I'm just getting my timelines right. Yeah, it was early 2015. Sadly, we and very unexpectedly, we had a family tragedy, and kind of out of the blue, my sister went into hospital in Greater Manchester to give birth to her second child, and it was full term. There was no complications in the pregnancy, and everything was fine. And unfortunately, there was and I must say, by the way, my mum worked in the NHS for many years, and I'm a huge fan of the NHS and a huge believer in the NHS. But unfortunately, a couple of mistakes were made, and what that meant was that the baby, unfortunately, had been starved of oxygen to her brain for about 25. It actually happened, for just over 40 minutes, but there was a 25-minute catastrophic window where, unfortunately, baby Sophia had lost oxygen to her brain. And when the medical team realised, they delivered Sophia very quickly, but unfortunately she wasn't breathing. They managed to get her to breathe, but 12 days later she passed away, which was very tough. In the delivery, they also caught my sister's internal organs, and Lauren got sepsis, and luckily she made it. She's still with us today, and has gone on to have a couple more children, and but it was a very tough time for the family.
Yeah, that's very tough.
It's very difficult, and after 12 days, Sophia passed away. They moved Sophia because obviously they are amazing, the NHS, as I say, and they tried to give her every chance of survival. So they moved her to what's called the NICU unit, which is the newborn intensive care unit at Royal Manchester Children's Hospital in Manchester, and they moved Lauren onto a subsequent ward as well. And as I say, thankfully Lauren made it, but the care and attention that they gave to Sophia and the dignity to the family was incredible. You also realise when you go on there as a parent, which I am, and Rob is as well, that NICU is the kind of place that you just don't know exists until you know, and when you do know it exists, it's usually because you're in a whole heap of trouble. And just on this one NICU alone, of which there's 4 or 5 in Greater Manchester and a ton more all over the country, but just on this one NICU alone, they save about 1,500 babies' lives a year, and these babies are smaller than the palm of your hand. So I went on the ward to see Sophia, and you see all these babies, and it's very tough. And I don't know where it sort of came from really, but there was this thing in my mind that these babies were fighting for life, and I wanted to do something to try and support them and raise some money. And before I knew it, I was on a board writing charity boxing nights down, and the concept of normal people going to have a fight. But it was a not-for-profit event to help the hospital, to raise money for NICU, and that was where charity boxing nights came from.
Obviously it's a devastating story, but the fact that you've managed to kind of do this for them and to show your gratitude continuously, I think is amazing. Just for the listeners, what did you raise last year, Rick, out of this charity boxing night?
We got to just around about 100k last year.
Amazing.
Which was brilliant, and the way it's calculated because of different pots of money, and NICU has a couple of different funds that some funds are for, so we were able to buy another ventilator last year, so there's a pot that goes on directly onto the ward, but then there's subsequent pots, so we were able to put a little bit of money into a pot that supports bereaved parents, and that's called Spoons, and so it's calculated in different ways. But it was around about 100 grand, and then that's taken us in total now to about £500,000 so far.
Wow, amazing. So you've done since Sophia, how many of these nights have you done?
So we only do one a year, every October, and this year will be our 9th year. We missed a year because of COVID, but then in a little bit of stubbornness, when we were allowed to do it, I did 2 events in 1 year to make up for the one we missed. That was hard going, but but we're 9 years in now. This will be our 9th year.
Yeah, amazing. So this one is in October at the Hilton, and it's my pleasure to announce that Rob is obviously going to be one of those fighters. So how are you feeling about it, Rob?
Yeah, super excited, to be honest. Can't wait.
Good. How much have you been training specifically for boxing?
Yeah, so the boxing camp actually started this week. So it was our first charity boxing night camp session on Monday this week, and I do have to say, even though I have been on this kind of fitness journey for the past 12 months or so, I can see after Monday's session that it's going to get a lot more interesting over the next 6 or 7 weeks, as the camp progresses.
Yeah.
It seems like it's going to be a little bit like going back to school for me, to be honest, because I've never had a boxing fight before. I've not really done a lot of boxing in the past, so there's lots to learn in a relatively short period of time. So super looking forward to it.
Good. Were you sizing up your competitors? Were you eyeing them out?
Yeah, well,
yeah, he was.
I didn't talk to anyone on Monday night. I just kind of stood in the corner, weighing everyone else up and watching them when they were training and on the bags. So maybe I'll be a little bit more friendly on Thursday.
Good, I'm glad to hear it. So how many people have you got fighting, Rick, in this October?
So we have usually a slightly larger pool of fighters that then that dwindles down into our final number, which is 14 fighters. We have 7 bouts on the night.
Nice, amazing. It's black tie as well, so everyone's going to look amazing. I'm already looking forward to it because there's quite a large group of the Godel team all going, Rob. So we'll all be there to kind of shout you and support you and all the rest of it. But we're also a very proud sponsor of the event, which is amazing. So I guess for the listeners, Rick, how can people get involved? How can people sponsor the event? And talk to me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so like you said earlier, and thanks for that, Fran, the event is called Charity Boxing Nights, so the website is charityboxingnights.co.uk. All my personal socials and my website is at Ric Moylan, which is RICMOYLAN. People can reach out to me directly. I have a brilliant event team called Connecting Events who supported me at the very beginning in a chance meeting. Penny, one of the founders of Connecting Events, she's an amazing character, very unique character, and then she's an event planner, and the Connecting Events helped me get the event off the ground. They helped me when I didn't have the financial capacity at the time to get it going. They supported me without fees for a long time, so they're a brilliant small business. So yeah, if anybody wants to reach out to me, whether that's for tickets or to get involved in sponsorship or anything like that, it's at Charity Boxing Nights or at Ric Moylan, and then myself personally and one of the lovely people at Connecting Events will make sure that they're well looked after and they have an amazing night.
Good stuff. As I mentioned, Godel obviously a sponsor. Rob, first question to you, Billy. What does it mean personally for Godel to be sponsoring an event like this, and kind of what does it mean in a wider context to the people at Godel and what it can do for them as well?
Yeah, so I hadn't been to this event before, whilst I knew that Rick put on these events in previous years, and indeed some of my ex-colleagues at other businesses that I've been involved in have fought on the night. I'd never been to the event, but going last year and seeing how good the event was, and hearing Rick's story about the unfortunate kind of tragedy that happened in his family, and hearing how amazing the NICU unit is at the Children's Hospital, it really kind of hit home. Being a father, having a young family, it's something that you wouldn't wish on anyone to go through. So I was really keen to support Rick in this journey that he's on and get Godel involved a little bit more to support the event and sponsor the event going forward and become part of the Charity Boxing Night family. I was there at the event last year, and I was just really blown away. And I said to my wife when we were there last year, I said I'd just love to tick the box and kind of get involved and fight, and the stars have aligned, so to speak. It's interesting because our CEO here at Godel, Gareth Ainsworth, has fought a couple of times before at Charity Boxing Nights. He hasn't won on the night yet, so hopefully I will be able to avenge his defeats and try and get a victory for Godel this year.
You better, Rob. We can't have 3 losses at Godel, Rob. Come on, you've got to bring it home for us.
Yeah, exactly. Even more pressure.
There'll be loads of us there chanting you if you don't.
Hopefully everyone from Godel who is there is supporting me and cheering me on, and
not wanting you to lose.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, like the kind of feedback from all of the team here at Godel has been absolutely amazing. They've seen my journey over the past kind of year or so, and they've been super supportive, and it's just great to see how many of them are going to come to the night, and I'm very thankful that so many are going to come and support me. I think there's a few of the guys and girls who are going to come over from Poland as well. So yeah, I will be under pressure to put on a performance for everyone. And hopefully, after seeing the event this year, then some of the other team members at Godel will get excited and want to put their names forward to fight next year. Because, as Rick has alluded to, Godel are going to continue to be part of the Charity Boxing Night family, and we want to continue to support this event in years to come. So, yeah, any of the Godel team who are out there and attending on the night, make sure you're paying attention and getting ready for next year.
And Rick, obviously you get overwhelming support from a number of businesses and people. What does it mean to you as the person who orchestrates all of this, seeing that support? What does it feel like?
I'm really proud of everything that we do with Charity Boxing Nights. We've got 3 sort of key markers, really. The first one is that we want our guests to have an amazing time, and every single year, and thankfully it has happened every single year, somebody, if not a number of people, will come up to us and they'll say, I don't really like boxing, but I've had such a great night tonight. I've really, I didn't know what to expect, and I've had such a great time. So we want our guests to have an amazing time. We want them to look back on the night and be blown away and have a memory, a memory for life with it. That's the first thing. The second thing is that our fighters, first and foremost, are safe, and safety is everything. But they also look back with pride, because I've got to say, and me and Rob haven't spoken about this, and I'm going to embarrass him now, but it's a huge thing that Rob's doing for somebody in his position within the organisation, to be such a senior person and to step up and lead, to lead from the front. But also, there is a lot of pressure. There's a lot of pressure. Yeah. There's a lot of colleagues coming to watch, and there's also a lot of colleagues who will have an eye on what the result is. There's no doubt about that. So I'm really proud that he's prepared to do that, to support the cause and to support the charity and to support everything we do. Rob mentioned the Charity Boxing Nights family, and Godel as a sponsor, absolutely, but then also Rob as an individual, but also everybody who attends on the night as well. They all become part of the Charity Boxing Nights family. So as a people person, I pride myself on trying to be a people person. I'm really proud of all of that, and I'm really proud that people want to support and want to help and want to challenge the self and all of those things. So I'm super proud. And then the final thing, the third element, is that we have to raise money. The doctors and nurses are incredible people. They do amazing things day in, day out to save lives. But the reality is that it requires funding. The reality is that funding is hard to come by where we're at right now in society. Yeah. So we've got to raise money, and whilst I take a lot of the plaudits and the credit for it, I cannot do what we do with Charity Boxing Nights without the help and the people behind the scenes that I have alongside me, the boxing coaches that I trust, the event organisers that I trust massively. But the reality also is I cannot do it without the support of people like Rob and people like every member of staff at Godel and my partners. So I'm super grateful for the support that every single person gives us with what it is we're doing with Charity Boxing Nights.
I think it's amazing what you're both doing. I actually can't wait to come. I know a lot of the team can't wait, and just to see it in action, but ultimately to raise money for a really brilliant, deserving cause. So I'm really looking forward to it. My last question to you both, and I'll start with you, Rob, is what's one piece of advice you would give someone going on a similar journey?
I think my advice for anyone on any journey that they're on, in essence, whether it's weight loss, fitness and health, studying, business, relationships, whatever it may be, is to be focused and dedicated. And just focus on specific goals, specific outcomes, and just be absolutely committed and dedicated to achieving them. And if you're doing that day in, day out, and you can hold that mirror and look yourself in the mirror and know that you're giving it everything, then you're going to achieve your goals, and you're going to fulfill any of the outcomes that you've got.
Absolutely. It's passing that mirror test every day, isn't it? And it's something Rick says to us quite a lot in our sessions is, can you look at yourself and be like, yeah, I gave that a solid go today. Rick, same question to you. One piece of advice you'd give somebody going on a similar journey?
I like to break the rules, Fran, so I'm going to do
You're going to
two,
give
if
me two,
that's
aren't you?
okay. Yeah,
I knew you would.
Yeah. The first stuff is to back yourself, because if you don't, who will? You've got to back yourself. But then to remember that it's supposed to be tough. This journey, it's supposed to be tough, and it's those challenging times that make the rewards all the more sweeter. As I always say, short-term pain leads us to long-term pleasure.
I love it. What a great way to end. Thank you both for being on this episode of the Godel Pod. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.